Maintaining good relations with local communities can be tricky when you're a mining company, particularly if you're operating overseas. And frankly, there's good reason for this. Historically, some miners have had a reputation for extracting wealth while leaving a spoiled environment and health hazards behind, rather than a share of the profits. Our guest today operates on a more humane playbook. She runs a mining company that is generating international attention for its community initiatives in Cambodia. Welcome to Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. My guest today is Delayne Weeks. She's the CEO of Angkor Resources, and I'm Michael Swido. Delayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's my pleasure.
Where are you joining us from today?
Well, today I'm in northern Canada, and our team is in northern Cambodia.
All right. Well, they are a world apart, and we're going to zoom in on your work in Cambodia, specifically in Ratanakiri province, which is in the northeast of the country, not far from the border with Vietnam. Your company, Angkor Resources, holds 3 mineral exploration licenses there, which are potentially quite valuable. But you're making headlines not just on the economic front, but for your community relations as well. 3 years ago, you signed an agreement with Indigenous communities in Ratanakiri. This was the first of its kind in Cambodia, and it's being cited as a potential template for mining companies in Cambodia and beyond. Since then, you've undertaken a number of development projects in the region. I was wondering if you could give us an overview, set a picture for us of the work that's been done.
Sure. So we've been there for over a decade. We have looked at several licenses, but the 2 particular ones in Ratanakiri province happen to have a large member of the Indigenous communities in that segment. And Ratanakiri has the majority of Cambodia's Indigenous people in that province. So we've been working with them for a number of years, but we're able to sign this agreement a couple of years ago, just towards the end of COVID. And that was very instrumental because it did set a precedent in the country. It's something that I wish Canada had done years and years ago, because it works with those communities right from day one, right from where we want to go prospecting, exploration, development, into production and through reclamation. So it helps the communities develop programs based on their needs. You know, what are they looking for? More education, more healthcare, et cetera. And it's worked tremendously well for us over the last 3 years.
Give us an example of the sort of projects that are in place there.
So when we spoke to the community, I mean, one of them is access. They're in quite a remote area. So they want help with infrastructure, with making the roads a little bit better and putting in some clean water solutions and some sanitation, latrines where necessary, and then economic development. What can they generally are into agriculture, but what can they do to value add their product or to go into crops that give them a better value for their money down the road? So we look at a variety of, it might be processing cashew nuts rather than just picking them up in the raw shell. It might be looking at cacao, growing cacao because there's a market for chocolate and a demand for that, rather than the traditional mango and rubber trees, et cetera. So it's a whole variety of projects depending on what they're asking for.
All right, that's really interesting. I mean, particularly the cacao, because chocolate prices are definitely rising. So if they can get in on that, that's fantastic. And you've done, like you said, roads and healthcare projects, education, livelihoods. But let's be clear, your company is a mining company. It's not a charity. It's not a development agency. Yet your website notes that these education, health, and livelihood projects are a core part of your company's business philosophy. Why is that?
Michael, I think it's about our philosophy. I mean, we've said all along, and honestly, this should be happening on a global basis. This should be happening in our backyard. We want to treat people in the areas in which we're working in the same manner that we would like to be treated. And that means if they need some assistance in education, then if we're working there, I think it's not just an obligation, but it's a great opportunity to help them with that. I'm often shocked about how profound this whole topic is about helping community, because to me, it's just a natural course of business. Yes, of course, we're a mineral and oil and gas company, and we both explore and produce, but wherever we're doing that, we should be looking at the social side, the environmental side, and the governance of it. Honestly, it's just part of the way we do business every day.
Well, in some corners of the world, unfortunately, ESG has become a dirty term, environmental, social, and governance. But I mean, it's great to see that you really do take that to heart, and that's part of your philosophy. I want to take a step back now to when you first visited Ratanakiri. What were your impressions of the area then, and how did this partnership with the indigenous communities there, how did it come about?
Well, when we first went there, it was a long time ago now, and it was so undeveloped. It took 2 days to drive there because the roads were horrendous. A great deal has changed in the last decade, but this community agreement was only signed 3 years ago because companies had been looked at by the indigenous communities as entities that were going to take their land, were going to exploit them. And so it took a long time to build a level of trust, to prove that we are a different kind of company, that not all companies are bad, and to set a real example in the entire province of an entity that they could trust, that they could go to if they needed assistance, and that they could count on for support.
So the people who live there, they're called the Jarai. That means people of the waterfalls or people of the flowing river. And when I look at your website and social media feeds, I see some pretty good photos of the projects there. What are you most proud of?
Gee, great question, Michael. I think I'm really proud of the way we've managed to do business. I mean, I think it gives me great pride that first we were able to sign this agreement, because I think it's so important, and I wish we had it in Canada for our Indigenous communities. It would have prevented a whole lot of decades and decades and decades of issues. So here we have something, and now we have other communities, other Indigenous communities coming to us saying, would you consider this in our village as well? That only happens when there's an amazing level of understanding and of trust. So I think we've established that. But the second thing that we go back to from day one, so this is over 10, 11 years now, we've had a training center in Ban Lung, and that takes 4 different classes a day for English and for computers, because that was the gap that was across the board, no matter where we went. So students come there between their public school, and they're instructed in English. We also have GPS mapping occasionally and other industry related courses in that training center. But that little training center turns out 360 students every semester that have a greater skill set than when they started.
So you're helping to conquer the digital divide there in one of the most remote parts of the country. Really, really something else. I'm sure it
Yes,
hasn't all been, sorry, go ahead.
yes, and I want to stress that when the Indigenous students come into that regional town, they would be at the top of the list to say, are any of them wanting to get into English and computers? So we make sure and pull them in if they come in, because they might be too far away from the regional town, to make sure that they're included.
I'm sure it hasn't all been smooth sailing. So I'm curious, what have been the biggest challenges in terms of achieving your development goals and maintaining good relations with the local community?
Well, the last 3 years have been pretty smooth I think the biggest challenge was um, building that trust. That takes a lot of time, and because they've had so many other companies come in and either been given or had taken their land for rubber plantations or other things, and I think you have to do it, right? You can't talk about building trust. You have to actually get your feet on the ground and go spend time with them and listen and listen and listen and learn, to say, what are their needs and where are they coming from, and what can we do we don't do a hand up. We kind of help them build their own higher levels of dignity so that they value themselves as well, and help them protect their land and their livelihoods.
So treating someone with dignity and also letting them feel that dignity and earn that dignity, if you will, as well.
For sure.
You mentioned earlier that this template with the Jarai community, this agreement, I should say, could become a template for other parts of Cambodia and for other mining companies. So is this experience and this agreement, is it really truly replicable?
Sure it is, because Michael, here's one of the beauties of it. It's directly between us as a company and the Jarai communities. Nobody else is involved. Now, we've had some NGOs that wanted to participate, and we said, sure, you can. But this agreement is between those communities and Ankor Gold. And so ultimately, Ankor Gold is our Cambodian subsidiary of Angkor Resources. What does that take? It takes a choice that we make as an industry to work directly with the Indigenous communities. And if that's not replicable, then I'm not sure what is. It's a choice we make. Nobody made us do it. And so could you do that with a telecom industry? Could you do it with another mine, an iron ore mine? Absolutely, you could. It's about the choice you make.
I love how you put that. Really well put. You know, strong community relations, they should be essential for any mining company. It's the right thing to do. It's also good business. So what advice would you give other mining companies, be it in Cambodia, Canada, or elsewhere, when it comes to local partnerships?
One is, do not wait until you find a resource, because all that is kind of buying your way through. Once you've got start as soon as your boots hit the ground. Find out who your stakeholders are and what their needs are. And I think then two, be patient, learn to listen. So often I think members of developed countries go into developing countries and think we have the answer, and we haven't even heard them out. So listening is really, really important. And then make sure that you're working side by side with local people. So if we didn't have our local people that were helping us with this, because you're talking about 2 or 3 different languages. So even translating that back takes patience, and it takes working with the locals diligently. Those would be my two key suggestions.
Yeah, I think that's great. Start from the very beginning. Make sure that this isn't some form of greenwashing. You know, be sincere, authentic in what you're doing, and actively listen. I mean, that's great advice in any situation. And when it comes to development and working with the community, then I mean, I think that's top-notch advice. Delayne, it's really been a pleasure talking about this with you. It's not every day that we have an opportunity to speak with a company that places community really at the heart of what they do. And for those of you who may question whether this is good for business, well, Angkor Resources' share price is trading near its 52-week high, and the stock is up some 70% over the past 12 months. Delayne, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's always a pleasure, and have a great day.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Angkor Resources CEO Delayne Weeks, and you've been watching Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Swider.